Before I go on stage, I touch the floor over 100 times. If I don't do it, I get nervous, scared. Why? Well, it's because of OCD. Anyway, let's go back a bit. My name is Bertie Richmond. I'm a student here at Cass, and I've struggled with OCD and anxiety, but mainly OCD, pretty much my entire life. Now, what does this mean? It means that I usually spend an ungodly amount of time doing things that others would deem unnecessary. For instance, when I was younger, I couldn't sleep, like a lot of 9-year-olds. But before my mum would leave every night, in order for me to be able to go to sleep, I would have to say to her, and I quote, "I feel weird about stuff, but I shouldn't, should I?" Yeah, I've been saying that for 5, almost 6 years now. And here is also where I feel the anxiety had a big role to play, especially when you spend hours sitting on the staircase, too nervous to go in and ask your mum to tuck you in again, and too scared to go back upstairs. Now, I could go on for hours about previous and past experiences with anxiety, but first, I have one question for you all. When was the last time you felt nervous, anxious, scared? And at that moment, what calmed you down? Now, I'm sure most of you have thought to yourself of an image of a serene beach, a loved one cheering you on, or even a stuffed animal. But for me, what comforted me, along with I feel weird about stuff, but I shouldn't, should I, was touching the floor. Now, of course, my parents took me to therapy for it, but to their horror, it was just beyond stopping. Because when you can't even understand why you do something, and the people around you definitely can't, not even professionals. And trust me, I've been to see a lot of professionals. Anyway, fast forward a couple years, and I'm still doing it. Why? Again, I can't really tell you. But what I can tell you is I'm doing it a lot less. I only really touch the floor now when I feel like I really, really need to. So basically, still all the bloody time. But I feel the anxiety, the real root of this problem, has gone a lot better. Why? Jack Nicholson. Now, I realize Jack Nicholson has nothing to do with OCD or TED Talks for that matter. But he did do this one film called As Good As It Gets, where he plays a writer with severe OCD. He falls in love with single mum Helen Hunt. He's trying to win her over with his harsh but charming personality. Nothing really new film-wise. But as I was sitting there watching this film, I thought to myself that although I've never seen anyone else touching the floor, that isn't to say that I'm the only person who has this problem, and that touching the floor is the only symptom. And so, a little later down the line, I got into acting. And when I started, I never intended it to become a bigger part of my life as it is now, but it just kind of did. I mean, I loved it. I loved going up on stage, and the more and more I did it, the less and less I touched the floor. And I suppose some people will say that's just the magic of acting for you. Others would tell you that's just a hobby for you. But either way, acting really did help me stop a lot of my tics. Although getting up on stage is nerve-wracking enough, something about the nerves stopped me from being nervous. A distraction. But trust me, you can be as shy as anything. If acting gives me the courage to stop touching the floor and do this talk, then your acting can get you out of anything. Mind you, I even had the courage to invite my friends. None of them are here, but if I had the courage to do this talk and invite friends, then I really have come a long way. OCD, unlike other mental illnesses that people have been coming up and talking about today, isn't itself the superpower. The superpower comes from what you get by overcoming it. Now, I realize superpowers, much like Jack Nicholson, also don't have that much to do with TED Talks. But when what you are turns into what you do and enjoy, you start to realize that the things you used to thought mattered actually don't. And the things that you used to think held you back and debilitated you actually make you who you are. And I suppose for me, it's just something you have to accept. And once I did, things started getting better. Because I didn't want to make this talk about a poor little boy who touches the floor to cope. No, I wanted to make this talk so I can tell people, other people like me, that you're not alone. And you just got to find that thing that while you're doing it, it makes you forget about everything else. Someone, and I apologize for putting another quote in here, you don't have to learn how to control your thoughts. You just have to stop letting them control you. And I realize I'm starting to sound like a mother's Facebook page, but it's not about completely abolishing the OCD and anxiety. It's about learning to live and adapt with it. OCD doesn't define me. And whatever you have shouldn't define you either. Touch wood. You've just got to find that thing. Almost like stepping out on stage. Thank you.